welcome back to the Resale Buzz. Today I want to talk about something as resellers that we all deal with, especially if you sell online through Amazon, eBay, or wherever else, is shipping. Shipping is just one of those things that you have to do as a reseller. Sometimes it can be a little cumbersome, shipping a lot of packages. But one thing that you should realize is when you ship things, you're always taking a chance. Not just because someone could, for obviously reasons, they could rip you off and just claim they never got it. But also you need to be aware of the items you're shipping, the carrier you're using, and how you're covered through insurance. Which I'm going to show you. The insurance is somewhat limited through some of these carriers. And this topic is going to be especially important for people that ship higher value items, and most importantly, higher value items that are considered antiques or collectibles. And these items are in quite high demand, especially through some place like eBay. So you should be aware when you're shipping these items, in the event that they get lost or stolen or damaged, what your rights are as far as getting paid on those items. Now, myself personally, I use the regular post office most of the time, and I ship things priority. And most of the items that I ship are anywhere from $20 to $100. So it's really not that big of a deal if they get lost or stolen. I sell enough of them so I can always just write it off. And really, it doesn't happen that often, but it does happen once in a while. Now, I have sold more expensive items, and this really is a concern and was a concern for me as far as shipping the item. And in the one case, I elected not to ship the item, but to deliver it. It was enough for me to hop on a plane and actually hand deliver it. That took care of payment, which obviously if you've seen the previous video I did with PayPal is a concern. And it also took care of the problem of it getting lost or damaged in transit. So the first thing I'm going to cover here is the insurance. And just so many people realize, most of the carriers, they have insurance up to a certain dollar value depending on the amount of postage that you get. There's insurance included, and if not, you can always buy insurance. But one of the interesting things I learned is most of these carriers, as a matter of fact, the major carriers, they will only cover up to certain amounts of liability, especially in the case of collectibles, antiques, and items that are considered artifacts. And the reason for this is many of those items are irreplaceable. They want to make sure that they can replace the item. If it's irreplaceable, it's hard to put a value on it. There are third-party insurance carriers. Some of them cost quite a bit of money depending on what you're selling. But these are some of the things that you should be aware of when you're selling online. And the first thing I want to talk about is UPS. Now, UPS, I'm just going to cover a personal experience that I had with UPS. Just in case some of you use UPS, especially their drop-off stores. If you drop off an item or you drop it off and have them pack and ship it for you. Now, they have something called the pack and ship guarantee, which in my opinion, through my experience, isn't much of a guarantee. Just so you know, the UPS stores are all individually owned, so it's much like a franchise. So any type of claims will go through that store and not actually UPS. They can actually deny your claim, from what I've read. So something to keep in mind. Now, on my personal story with UPS, I have used them a few times in the event that I had something that I had enough margin on where I wanted to make sure it arrived safely. So with their pack and ship guarantee, I went ahead and took it to the store, had them pack it up and ship it, because I believe that it was the safest way to do it, because they guarantee that it'll arrive in one piece, and if not, they'll you can file a claim and they'll reimburse you. Now, in my experience with UPS, I used them several times, and then one time I used them for a piece of pottery where the value was about $300. So I dropped it off, explained to them that they can pack it up. Please pack it up carefully and have it shipped. So what happened in this instance is the package arrived and it was broken. They packed it, they shipped it, and it arrived and everything was broken. And unfortunately, the buyer, she was really looking for this set. She called me all in hysterics and crying, and as a customer, I could tell she was honest. She sent me pictures of everything that was broken, and she told me that it looked like the set that I sent her wasn't even packaged for much protection. She showed me the packaging on it, and it was absolutely horrendous. It was basically just thrown in a box and shipped. So once this was done, I immediately refunded her. Because I believed I would have done it anyways, but I believed that because of the pack and ship guarantee, they would have just seen it and said, okay, we'll just pay you the amount. Now, one of the things with a lot of carriers is they're going to want you to prove the value of the item. And in this case, I was able to do that with the purchase price through eBay. I bought it for cash. I didn't have a value on what I actually bought it for with a receipt or anything. So I was able to use the eBay purchase as the amount that it was valued at. Now, the strange part of this story is I immediately called. I didn't realize at the time that these UPS stores were individually owned. I called UPS, and as I'm telling you, they told me, well, you're going to have to call the individual store. That's where the claim is going to go through. So I called the store, and they were not the most friendly, but I called them and I submitted a claim. So after I submitted the claim, I figured it would be maybe a week or so for the claim to go through. There really wasn't much argument with their pack and ship guarantee that they packed it, they shipped it, it was broken, and there really should just be a claim put out. They should pay on that claim, as their guarantee says. Now, one of the things I learned is the stores themselves, because they're individually owned, they can choose whether to honor the insurance claim. So after I read that, it was, well, now it's up to the individual store. It's not backed by UPS. So I still went through with the claim, and I guess about a week and a half, 2 weeks went by. I hadn't really heard anything. And I called the store and I said, I put this claim in for a package it was broken in transit. And I was told by the person in the store, well, I'll have to tell my manager, and she will give you a call tomorrow. So I was polite and I waited. I waited the next day. I didn't receive a call. I waited the next day. I didn't receive a call. I called the store again. I asked for the manager, and I left a message for the manager and was told that I would get a call the following day. So again, 1 day went by, 2 days went by, no call. So by this time, as you can imagine, I was a little livid, and I went into the store. The manager was not there, and I didn't take it out on the poor soul that was sitting at the counter, but I did explain their pack and ship guarantee. And what I was told is there had to be an investigation by UPS. Now, mind you, they did send the package. The buyer from eBay sent the package back to the store. So they had the package. And I was told this time that I went in that they would have to do an investigation. Now, I'm thinking in my mind, what type of investigation is there? They packed it. They shipped it. They have this pack and ship guarantee, so they should cover it. But I was told they need to do an investigation. So time went by, and I would occasionally call the store. I never got a hold of the manager at this time. Probably 6 weeks went by. And finally, after about 2 months, I was able to call the store and get a hold of the manager and was told, we are going to send you a check. So this was actually resolved, but what you need to be aware of is the time that it took to get this resolved. And also my time that it took to get it resolved, because I think if I didn't keep reminding them and keep on it, it may have never been resolved, or it may have taken much longer to get resolved. So if you're using UPS for their pack and ship, be aware of these things that can happen. Now, the other instance that I'm going to explain is the time that I had an item that was valued over $10,000. This item was considered an artifact. Artifacts themselves are pretty much considered irreplaceable. So in this instance, I did a lot of research. The U.S. Postal Service will only cover a value up to about $5,000. And FedEx will only cover up to $1,000, particularly in collectibles, fine art, and artifacts. So something you should be aware of is their insurance policies. Meaning that if I shipped this item that I sold for over $10,000 with FedEx, they were only going to cover $1,000 worth of insurance. So that's certainly something to keep in mind. And I can definitely see the reasoning behind this, because the item is irreplaceable. So if you'll take a look, I actually pulled up the FedEx guide here on their insurance, and you'll see in section F here where it has the shipments, packages, or freight containing all or part of the following items are limited to a maximum declared value of $1,000. So here you'll see it has artwork, also film, photographic images, photographic chromes, and photographic slides. Any commodity that by its inherent nature is particularly susceptible to damage, or the market value of which is particularly viable or difficult to ascertain. Antiques are any commodity that exhibits the style or fashion of a past era and whose history, age, or rarity contributes to its value. You'll see glassware as well. Glassware including but not limited to signs, mirrors, ceramics, porcelains, china, crystal, glass, frame glass, and any other commodity with similarly fragile qualities. Plasma screens aren't covered too. So if you're shipping any TVs, plasma screens, that's something to keep in mind. Jewelry, including but not limited to costume jewelry, watches, and their parts. Mountain gems or stones, precious or semi-precious industrial diamonds, and jewelry made of precious metal. Also, furs aren't covered, and it has this last section on precious metals, including but not limited to gold and silver bullion or dust. So something to keep in mind while you're shipping these. I'm not real familiar, but I would imagine any of the other major carriers have the same limitations. And the reason for that is a lot of these items are considered irreplaceable. Also, it can be difficult to get a value on that item, which we're going to see here. They actually, when you file a claim, they're going to want proof of value. So I'm here on the United States Post Office screen. And when you submit a claim, here's some of the things they're going to want, which is the tracking number. And here is the proof of value. So under proof of value, you're going to see they want a sales receipt or a paid invoice or paid bill of sale, a statement of value and or its estimates of repair costs from a reputable dealer, a credit card billing statement, a receipt of costs incurred, printouts of the online transaction. That's the good one if you are selling things through online outlets. Also, they're going to want proof of damage. A lot of times they're going to want the package shipped back, in the case of the UPS store, as the one I explained. And also they're going to want evidence of insurance purchased. So some things to keep in mind when you're shipping. The other thing you want to keep in mind is all these places, if you're shipping items on your own, you want to look through their shipping, the requirements for their shipping. A lot of these places have requirements on exactly how the package needs to be put together to ship it for the insurance to cover it. This can include the type of materials you use, right down to the thickness of the box. So if you think you're safe just putting an item in a box and shipping it, you're probably not. And the truth of the reality here is why I'm making this video. I've done quite a bit of research on a lot of insurance claims, and the truth of the matter is, if you ship an item and it is damaged or lost in transit, the carriers are so covered in this event to come back and say we aren't going to cover your package. Now, why is this important? It's less important if you're shipping lower value items. They're more apt to honor an insurance claim on a lower value item. It really has to do with the value of the item. If you're shipping items that are of a larger value than probably $300-400, there's a good chance that you're really going to have to spend some time for them to honor their insurance claim. So that's something to keep in mind when you're shipping items. I really just wanted to kind of go over the shipping a bit, so a lot of you are aware of this. I don't think a lot of people are actually aware of the chances that you take when you ship items. There's a lot of places that do ship items of high value online. A lot of these large auction houses are selling things online now, but they're probably using third-party insurance. Now, something to know about this third-party insurance, when I did some research, a lot of third-party insurance, you want to read their disclaimers as well, because they are only going to cover you up to a certain dollar value also. Couple that I looked at, the maximum was $10,000. So something to keep in mind as well is these third-party insurance carriers, the more that you have to insure, the more expensive it's going to be. And I know in my particular case, when I sold a high value item, it was almost going to cost as much to insure it as it was for me to hand deliver it. And that's why I chose to hand deliver the item. So there's not a whole lot of coverage when it comes to shipping items. The bottom line is they will look for a way to not honor that claim depending on the dollar value. So be careful when you're selling items online, particularly the higher value items. And I will be back to comment soon on another subject. Please like, comment, subscribe. You can also email us at resalebuzztalk@gmail.com. I'd love to hear your comments. If you have any experiences, bad or good, with your shipping and insurance claims, I'd certainly like to know what your experiences are. So be safe. Keep grinding away. As I mentioned in another video, it's becoming a little more difficult to find those items at times, but they still are out there. And I will be back to talk to you soon.